to that Deacon on YouTube for this month. I'm a bit late getting a video out to you all this month because the office where I'm parish administrator at my church has been a little bit busy. We've had some active weekends where my time has been divided and I didn't have time to really film anything. And then I've been preparing 3 things. One of them I'll cover next month because I'm going to share with you a unique morning retreat that I put together that has been years in the making. And it all involves a little MP3 player in which I have created 6 stations that are each crafted in a way to make a sound environment. So everybody will be given some earphones and taken around our campus. And so that involved coming up with 6 meditations. It involved finding special music for those meditations, recording the voiceovers, and finding sound effects. So that has taken a lot of time. I've also been preparing for the 3rd time. I will be offering a lecture in and around the community where my church is located, where I kind of share my personal story of how a person that worked 20 years in the entertainment industry ended up in ministry. But along the way, I get to share some stories of some of the famous people I've had come in contact with over the years. And also, which is the subject of this month, my spouse and I have been preparing to move, which will also take place in the middle of June. So right now, my life is somewhat crazed and active. So as you can see from the graphic that I put up for this month, it says 21st Century Serfdom. And you think, what? That can't be. But I think it's alive and well, but in another form. I'm not sure where you live, but in California, and pretty much the entire state of California, especially in and around big urban areas, there has been a growing and a fastly growing disparity between renters and homeowners. Now, the cost of housing in California, in Southern California and Northern California, has shot through the roof. It is almost impossible to afford housing. The very lowest median cost of a home right now in California is nearing $500,000, and that is for a very basic home. And because of that, there has been a sharp increase in people renting. And because of this, rents have gone up because there is a higher demand for rental units in all of California, especially surrounding Los Angeles. Let me share a story with you. I recently read of a person who works as an executive in San Francisco, and this person makes $160,000 a year. They can barely afford to squeak by in the city of San Francisco. So that tells you that pricing in California is getting way out of control. We moved into this building 7 years ago, and it was right after California and our area was recovering from what is called the Great Recession. I think it was a depression, but that's another story. But we were able to find this building at an affordable price. We realized that this building was over 50 years old. It was not in the best condition. It had a dinky little kitchen, but it was somewhat roomy, and we were able to afford a 1-bedroom. The building we live in has absolutely no amenities whatsoever except a laundry room that has 2 washers and 2 dryers that work maybe every month. There's always one of them down or something. This building has absolutely no security whatsoever. You can walk right into our apartment complex. There have been robberies in our building. Thankfully, we weren't hit, but our next door neighbors, both of them, had things stolen. Our parking has no security, and it only has one small driveway to get in and out for 20 cars. So if there was ever a fire here, kiss your car goodbye. But we thought the price was fair for what the building offered, and we moved in. Well, over the past few months, in fact, over the last 6 months, our rent has gone up $300. That is not counting other increases we have had over the past few years. When I questioned the landlord about this, she merely stated that they are getting the rents up to market value. So as the rents were being increased over the years, and not just little boosts, we were getting a $100, $150 boost, we thought that's fine, but please upgrade our apartment in some way. Most apartments, if you're given carpeting in California, and probably most rentals, they're not going to spend the highest dollar on carpeting. And over the years, we noticed it wasn't installed properly. There were carpet nails sticking up here and there, and it wasn't the best quality. It was getting worn. We noticed that when people moved out, the landlord would put in something that resembled wood on the floor. And we thought, well, that's easier to clean anyway. So we asked that the landlord upgrade us if she's going to charge more for rent. Her response was, yes, I'll do it if you pay half. Well, to a renter, that's not the best reply, because we can't take half of our floor with us when we leave. And we weren't about to upgrade an apartment for her and the next tenant that moves in. So that was entirely dropped. The more people I talk to in this area, and I talk to people at Laundry Love, and they come sometimes from the Glendale area to get their wash done, we're finding that a number of people are almost being forced out of their apartments like we are, because the rents are just jumping far beyond their means. So what am I and my spouse going to do in the near future? Well, we could stay here and sort of suffer as the raise of rents hit us at the whim of the landlord, trying to get it up to market value. But we decided not to. We don't want to give the landlord any more money than we think the apartment is worth. As you can see, I'm going to share some pictures. As you can see, this building is falling apart. And because of deferred maintenance, we have watched holes appear in our building from repairs that were half started and never completed. As you can see, along the side of our building, we have a building half painted, and this is because the landlord, the landowner, basically just doesn't want to spend money to improve the building and to keep it working efficiently. But of course, we'll raise rents so they can meet the rents at current market value. Recently, I did a little bit of research, and I found out the recommended rent for California is a max of 30% net income before taxes. What you take in should be 30% of what you make for housing. Well, that's not the reality. Right now, for many, many, many people, The average rent for a unit takes up to 50% of people's income. 50% of one's income just for housing, and that does not include your utilities or clothing or any of the things you need to live. Spending 50% of your income just to live in an apartment, which is probably subpar to begin with, is bordering on serfdom. Serfdom, as most of you might know, was when a person was attached to someone who owned the manor and the land. You worked the land, you kept a small amount of food, and the rest went to the lord of the manor. Well, we no longer, and we do not have manors in California and in the United States, but what we have are landlords. And what these people are doing, in my opinion, is trying to get an outrageous return on their investment. I had neighbors of mine that owned apartments when I were growing up, and basically they looked at an apartment building as an investment and a better return than investing it or putting your money into a savings account, which may garnish 3%, 4%, or less back in those days. By having an apartment complex, you were probably getting an 8 to 9% return. And you're making a little bit of extra money in the long term. But people, and I believe landlords nowadays, are looking for a gross inequality of profit and at the expense of people's lives. Another report I read in our area where I live, Glendale City proper, I just read that there are 15% of the community living at or below poverty level. So to find out that 15% of the population is living at the poverty level or below means that this has a direct relationship with rental properties, because a majority of people can no longer afford to buy a home. And if people are spending 50% of their income, you are probably at the poverty or below poverty level, unless you're willing and can afford to spend, ready for this, $2,500 for a basic room with a kitchen. A single apartment has been going for $2,200 to $2,800 for just a single. And the amazing thing is, people are forced to pay it because there's not enough inventory to bring the price down, and developers are not willing to invest and build apartments and affordable housing in this area and many areas of California. So this is what I believe will happen over the next few years. You're going to start to see a quality of life in California decrease. For example, you will probably see a lot of workers, lower-end workers, leaving the state because they can't afford to live here. You're probably going to start to see people graduating from nursing school and other medical support teams leaving the state because they can't afford to live here. So you're going to start to see a greater distance between people who provide services and people who expect services, and that is the upper 5% of the population who can't afford to live here. So you're going to see less and less of a quality of life in this state and in many cities around the area. You're probably going to see higher pollution, and you're going to see freeways and highway systems that are beyond capacity. Not because the freeways and highways can't handle the traffic. It's that people are being forced to move further and further out from where they work and will have to drive in to go to their jobs, but maybe spend 2 hours driving home because that's where they can afford to live. This is something I believe our legislature, our city councils, and a majority of people in power must address soon, or it's going to become catastrophic. I'm sorry to say I'm not the person to provide answers, but I can be the voice of reality, sharing what's going on, because I'm personally caught in that situation of serfdom. So yes, my friends, there is 21st century serfdom. So what are we going to do? What am I going to do? Well, next month when I share with you, I will be, by the grace of God, staying in a home in Montrose where I live. By the sheer hospitality of one of our parishioners who are snowbirds, they have a family home in Montrose, and they have allowed my spouse and I to stay in that house while they're gone this summer. So for the next 5.5 months, we will be staying in that home in Montrose, which will give us the opportunity to at least look for a new place to live in this area without feeling that we are burdened by a lack of time. I hope you can start to look around your own community for signs of 21st century serfdom. I believe it's out there. I believe it's flourishing. And I believe as people of faith, we must try to figure out a way to make sure that this is at least seen, visible, and known. That's all I have for you this month. God bless. See you next time.